Hello and welcome to Computer Tech and More. In this video we're going to be looking specifically at the Lian Li Unifan SL INF-120 and with data points for the NF-A12x25 and the NF-A12x15. I can read. And filling in other data points from my previous video where I talked about the RG Strix fan. And we're going to be looking specifically at this fan and doing some open box and some testing, and I'll have timestamps down below so you can jump to the sections that you're most interested in. Okay, let's do an open box of the Lian Li Unifan SL INF-120. So INF probably stands for Infinity! Revolutionized daisy chain ARGB fan. So first, the elephant in the room, the single fan and the multi-fan packs have some different stuff on the inside, as noted by Jay-Z's 2 cents. He featured, I think, this fan in a video, and it has just some different equipment in it, so different attachments, that sort of thing. But I bought the single fan because the performance is exactly the same and good for my testing purposes. Package contains Unifan Infinity, Unifan adapter, 4 screws, fluid dynamic bearing, voltage rating, rotational speed 0 to 2100 RPM, airflow is 61.3 CFM. Rated, we're going to be doing our own tests. Static pressure is 2.66 and 29 decibels. So already with that static pressure, it's adequate, but there are many fans that feature a higher static pressure. So what's really important for noise is static pressure, flow velocity at a certain decibel, because it doesn't matter if it can move a whole lot of air if it's noisy doing it. Well, I like a silent PC. Software control speed, enable magnetic fluid dynamic bearing to provide stability and durability and long lifespan. 40 LEDs in each fan. Quick pins. Only one cable is required. High static pressure when running at high RPM. Infinity mirror, look all around. So I actually like infinity mirrors. So that was one of the reasons I selected this fan as one of the first ones I was going to test. All right, let's open it. First and foremost, this packaging leaves a lot to be desired. I've just seen better. Although it's adequate, there's nothing wrong with it. But for a $30 fan, this packaging is pretty basic. Noctua certainly provides a lot more. But here we are. This is the Lian Li custom side connector with their cable. So it's got an ARGB header as well as a standard fan header for your motherboard. So you don't need to hook it up with RGB if you don't want to. And this hooks up to your fan. Note with that is it does require that custom connector. So it's not universally compatible. I have no idea what's in that. Instructions, save me. Tells you how to connect the different fans, how it plugs into the side. I don't see anything about what is in this specifically. I wonder if this is just extra covers for the infinity mirrors. So they're like static clean things. I'm not sure. I'm going to put that back in the packaging. Not mess with it at this moment. Alright, let's take the fan out. So already I'm looking at this and going, this is a very thick housing. So I'm going to bring up my NF-A25 or X25. I always forget to say that. And you can see that they're both rated at 120 millimeters. But the fan diameter, so the inside of the fan there, this looks a whole lot smaller. Yes, that is the most accurate way to measure things. Yeah, I can fit It is smaller. I really need to buy calipers. I don't have calipers yet, so I can't tell you exactly what the size difference is, but this is visually a lot smaller than the Noctua one. And here's my old Cougar fan. Yeah, it's pretty significantly smaller. Can you see through that? The holes are just about lined up. So you are losing a little bit there, so that means it will have a little bit of a reduction in effectivity on a radiator because you're getting less surface area. So when you have this hooked up to a radiator, your air is only going to push through, the majority of the air is going to push through wherever the fan blades are hitting. So that is a downside with this fan. The advantage is it looks very pretty. This must be the infinity mirror. I wonder if, yeah, these must go over top of that because it's got a little piece of tape there. Yeah, I can peel that back. This one will be RGB out of the wazoo. Both sides of the fan look really good. That is a difference from other fans. What else can I say about it? The sweep angle on it looks to be a more pressure optimized type fan as opposed to an airflow optimized because they're a little bit wider blades. But the blades themselves are smooth without any extra features. The inside of the housing is the same way. The supports on the back do have a little bit of an angle to it, so that can redirect airflow. This one is a bit extra thick compared to other fans I've looked at. And if you look on the inside there, you can see it houses all the cables to power the fan. And they're just thicker than, well, maybe not. I'm looking at some of my other fans off camera. And it is always a little extra thick, but it's not as aerodynamic as like they do on Noctuas. All right, let's go to the product page and take a look at some other information that they have on this fan. As it turns out, it looks like I do have the packaging for the NF-A12x15 and NF-A12x25. Mind, this is the 5-volt variant, but it features a lot of the same stuff, just that it runs on 5 volts, so USB power for its RPMs and that kind of stuff, as opposed to 12 volt for standard PC fans. Other than that, it's exactly the same RPM, and everything else. So 6-year manufacturer warranty. I believe that's the same on both fans, although I don't see it listed over there. Let's do the X15 first. Flow accelerating channels, AA frame, AAO frame, inner surface microstructures, stepped inlet design, metal reinforced motor hub, integrated anti-vibration pads, power management, extensive cabling options, SS02 bearing. That's their current best bearing, in my opinion at least. Award-winning design, flow acceleration channels, AA frame. I think that's an extra for the 5-volt variant. The same bearing, omni joint adapter set. I'm not sure. USB, 6-year warranty. And this one will come with some other stuff in there, just because this is USB powered. But you can see that they create a nice little graph showing how the fan should perform versus other fans. So you've got the NF-A12, which I think I'm featuring in one of my other videos. Yes, I just confirmed off camera, where it's more pressure optimized. And So this is a pressure versus flow rate curve. And to do this, you need like a very specialized wind tunnel where you know the exact diameters. You have a flow restrictor in the back and you open and close it with pitot-static tubes and all that kind of fun stuff. You do some computational fluid dynamics and bing bada boom, you got it. We're going to be doing much more simple testing for this channel because I think the science would, no offense, go over most people's heads. I do have a background in computational fluid dynamics. Anyways. Okay. Oh, and then it has rotational speed 1,900, airflow rate 96.2, acoustic noise 21.4, and static pressure of 2.07. All right, then we have the slim version of the same fan, the X15. It's 15 millimeters as opposed to a standard, what's it, 25 millimeters thick. This one is out of the box. So it has diagram of the SSO2 bearing, how it stabilizes itself, the without flow acceleration, with flow acceleration, showing how it's supposed to improve itself. Just some jargon there. And the back, some specs about it. Rotational speed, 1,850. It does have a low noise adapter, but I'm not going to be using it. Airflow is 94.2, so that's actually pretty good. Acoustic noise is 23.9, and static pressure of 1.53. So that brings a note into mind that having a reduced thickness between the fans reduces your maximum static pressure that the fan can achieve. So a thicker fan is going to do better in that regard because it allows a steeper sweep angle. But notice the airflow is actually very similar because airflow velocity or CFM, so cubic feet per minute, or Noctua is using meters cubed per hour. Again, you can just do your own conversions. Is less reliant on the sweep angle and more about rotational speed and like the blade design with regard to that, to just suck in as much air as possible, while the thickness is, again, static pressure. All right, next we're going to get into some testing. Before we take a look at the graphs and the charts, let's get the data points for the individual fans. The first one here is the Noctua NF-A12x25 slim 120 millimeter fan. So if you want to take down these data points, you can use them to generate your own graphs, just like I have. Next fan here is the Noctua NF-A12x25, the legendary quote-unquote best fan on the market currently. And the last fan in this roundup of testing is the Lian Li SL INF, so that's the Infinity version, 120 millimeter size fan. I'll leave that data up for a couple more seconds so you can pause the video. And I took all that data, created some basic charts with noise normalized 100% through cooler, CFM testing, and noise table that I'll be using to generate some graphs. All right, these are individual graphs for the individual fans. As we take a look at these individual graphs, let's think about and look at what they're actually talking about. In this first graph is RPM versus airspeed at the specific distances I tested. So what we're looking for here is for the lines to be almost linear. And you can see that as distance increases at each RPM level, the airspeed increases, so furthest away to closest to the fan, and that as RPM increases, so does the airspeed. Makes a lot of sense. Looking more closely at how airspeed drops over the distance, we're looking at this graph. And again, this first one is for the Noctua NF-A12x25. We'll look at the other ones next. Here, each line represents a fan RPM. The very best fan would be a nearly flat or flat line. So airspeed would not drop over the distance. But in the real world, we don't see this behavior. So we hope to see a linear type drop, and we want the drop to be as slow as possible. Having a slow drop indicates that the fan does not really disperse the air in a wide path around the fan. So you really want it to push the air into a narrow, more or less cone shape with a very narrow tunnel going through the case. That indicates that it can push air through it. And the Noctua A12x25 does exhibit pretty close to linear behavior. In this next graph, we are taking a look at RPM versus airspeed through an air cooler. So again, we want a more or less linear relationship, which we see in this. And as a last bonus graph, we have RPM vertical versus CFM horizontal, and my composite average fan curve right next to it. This is a moving average that as I test more fans will move. So realistically, you want the fan to outperform this graph, and the A12x25 is very similar in performance to the average fan. All right, now that I've gotten my verbal explanations out for each graph, let's take a quick look at the other fans. So this is the NF-A12x25. And next we have the distance from the fan at specific RPMs. And we can see that at 100% RPM, it has a fairly steep drop-off. But it seems to be doing okay, where at 100%, and I think this is like 80%, they end at just about the same point. But at very close to the fan, they have much more spacing, and really you can see how there's a big jump in performance based on how far apart these basically data points are. So there are specific RPMs that it appears to be run the most efficiently. All right, this is the RPM versus airspeed through a cooler, a very linear behavior or a relationship. And the last one being CFM versus RPM. And here we can see the A12x25 does outperform the average fan in a few key regions until we get to the higher RPMs where it trails off a little bit. And at the very low, it's a little bit off, but don't completely trust that data point. The fans are all a little funky at low RPMs. But certainly not least is the Lian Li SL Infinity 120. RPM versus airspeed at a distance from the fan. Again, vertical is RPM, horizontal is airspeed, and each of the different color lines is our distance from the fan. So at 11 inches, it has very interesting behavior that it almost catches up at the top RPM, at 100% RPM, to the 9-inch mark. It's a very odd behavior, and the reading is what it is. So more or less, I'd say it's not very efficient at longer distances from the fan, which leads me to think that it spreads out more. So let's take a look at the next graph. This one is specific RPMs, those are the different colors, of distance from the fan, horizontal, airspeed, vertical. So at slow RPMs, which is this bottom one, and then high RPMs, it has actually fairly good performance until it gets far away from the fan, where it basically drops off immediately. But 9 and 11 inches had very similar results. And anything under like 1,685 RPM really has a big drop off in performance. Then we have the airspeed through the cooler. Again, it's a very linear result, which is good. And the last graph for the individual is the CFM versus RPM. It gets close at 30-ish to, let's say, 50, 55%. 50% of its PWM curve. After that, it kind of trails behind my composite average fan. Now that we have individual graphs out of the way, let's take a look at how they compare to each other in this group of tests. Noise normalized testing is up first. Again, I chose a noise level of 42 decibels in my testing, as this was about the level of the Noctua A12x25 that I found to be near silent in my old 240 millimeter AIO in my old PC case, which is featured in one of my very first videos. In noise normalized testing through an air cooler, the top performer of these three fans is the Noctua A12x25 with an RPM of 1,340 and an airspeed of 1 meter per second. The Noctua A12x15 had an RPM of 940 and an airspeed of 0.55 meters per second. And the Lian Li SL NF-A12x25 had an RPM of 860 and an airspeed of 0.45. So at quiet noise levels, those two fans underperform my moving average. I would like to note here that it is possible that the Lian Li would do better on a radiator, which I don't own, but so far it's not looking good for the Lian Li fan. Noise normalized airflow through a case is up next. Here we again see the Noctua A12x25 as the top performer here in red, and my composite average fan, that is a moving average, as I test more fans it will shift position, is right here in the middle in brown. So it does cross paths with the Noctua, and the A12x15 comes in on below that, with the Lian Li fan way off the path. It's really underperforming. A quick note about the A12x15. It is a slim fan, and in pure airflow testing, the thickness of the fan does matter a bit less than in pressure optimized cases. Or in static pressure required cases, I should say. When the fans are opened up to 100% speed, power management speed, the Noctua A12x25 ran at 2,100 RPM, and the Lian Li SL Infinity 120 have about the same performance and the same RPM, and both of them are above the average fan mark. So 1.75 and 1.75, with the average fan having 1.6. That's meters per second. The A12x15 ran at 1,880 at 1.3 meters per second, which is still okay result. At 100% speed in my case simulation, airflow testing was pretty interesting. They all performed relatively equally, just at different distances. But how about the noise? At 2,100 RPM, the Noctua A12x25 is the quietest. On my edge of the graph here, you can see the noise. So the X25 is 52 decibels, while the Lian Li is 57.5, and the X15 is at 54. And the composite average is this line right here. Boom. So you can see that the Noctua outperforms it early and then drops behind. The X15 trails a little bit behind but stays relatively close. And the Lian Li fan is close at the beginning, drops way behind, catches up towards the end. Next are the cubic feet per minute graphs. The first one is noise normalized. So which fan is the best? The Noctua A12x25 outperforms my moving average and the other two by a significant margin, with a CFM of 49.82. The Lian Li is at 34.36. At 100% fan speed, the Lian Li beat the average and is actually the top performer with a speed of 82, CFM of 82.5, beating my moving average. The NF-A12x25 just barely edges out my average fan, and the A12x15 is a little bit behind. I think this is the case partially due to the testing tube that I have. As I demonstrated, it's not really a 120 millimeter on the diameter on the inside. It's rated at 4 inches, and I actually measured it to be under that. And the Lian Li fan has a smaller size fan, so it's not dealing with as much of the restriction in that tube, while the two true 120 millimeter fans have to push through the restriction. So as a result, it's acting more like a pressure case for the larger fans, and that's why I think the Lian Li does a little bit better. This also this could also indicate that the Lian Li fan would do a better job in a radiator, that it's able to handle more pressure cases better than the other two fans. Let's take a look at noise versus RPM. Noise is the vertical axis, and RPM is the horizontal one. The A12x25 has the best properties overall on this graph. It is seen here as this red line. My composite average is this brown line above it. So here, having your fan curve below my composite average shows better noise performance. The X15 is better noise-wise than the Lian Li SL Infinity 120, but not by a lot depending on the RPM. Overall, the two fans were not overly impressive. Before we get into the product pages and demonstration technologies on the fans, would I recommend any of these three fans? Well, if all you want is RGB, the winner is pretty clear to you. But in terms of raw fan performance, you just can't beat the Noctua NF-A12x25. It is the best of the three fans. I have more fan videos coming up or already released on my channel, so please subscribe to catch them all. And I'll have links to any of them that have already been published in the video description below, as well as my testing methodology piece. Are there any other fans that you all are interested in me testing? I'll try to get my hands on it to test it out and add to my data. Lian Li Unifan. 100% RPM. Okay, now let's now that we have the performance out of the way, let's check out some RGB on the Lian Li fan, and then we'll go and take a look at the product pages. First, let me apologize. I'm on my curved screen, so things look a bit weird. But this is the L-Connect software for the Lian Li fan. It's not detecting my fan, which leads me to believe that in order for it to for Lian Li's Connect software. To connect to it, you need the Connect box, which comes in the 3-pack, and not the single fan. So I decided to see if it would connect into my Asus control software, Armory Crate. And there's the motherboard, the memory, the ARGB, and what I found, I'm going to demonstrate this in a second, is that the fan is registered as an ARGB header. So it basically thinks it's a fan strip or a light strip. So you can't customize all the lighting effects like you can through the Connect software with just the single fan. So here we are sitting in front of my computer, and I just kind of have the fan placed in there. I didn't officially install it because I haven't gone around to that yet. And currently in Armory Crate, I have the ARGB headers and my memory sticks right there. Basically the LED control turned off, which is why it's rainbow puke. But you can get a good idea of what the different lighting is on the edges, across the middle, and that infinity edge, which I must say looks most excellent. I don't know how good it looks on camera, but in person, it looks flipping amazing. So say what you will for fan performance, this is probably the best looking RGB fan in the market. Let's go ahead and turn on Armory Crate. So I'm going to turn on things one at a time within Armory Crate. First, the memory. You're going to see it go to purple because that's the color I've chosen. And then next, the ARGB headers. Boom. So it is a little unfortunate that the software for really controlling this fan requires their special box. So it does work. It still looks really cool, but if you wanted to have like orange and purple, that would be what I would do, because that's kind of the theme of my computer right now. It's not an option, which is kind of disappointing for me, in all honesty. I also kind of wish that, even though I have all the same color purples, that they don't actually all look the same color, but it's a different topic. But it looks cool. I would recommend, if you're actually buying this fan, I kind of would lean towards buying, if you need 4 fans, buying the single one and then getting the 3-pack. That way you can use the ARGB header if you wanted to. Otherwise, get the 3-pack. Don't bother buying like 2 singles if you need 2 fans. Just get the 3 and have a spare fan lying around for future builds or something. This is the website for Lian Li's Unifan SL Infinity. I will be checking out the RGB in the fan. I'm not sure where this is going to go in the video. So if this is at the end, we've already looked at the RGB. If this is at the beginning, then we're going to check out the RGB in a little bit. But our main focus, or my main focus, is going to be on actual fan performance. So it's got fan control software that you can install, or you can just run it through your motherboard information and use your, I think I read this, the header on your motherboard to just read it like any other fan and control the RGB lighting that way without using Lian Li's software. So you can choose how you want it to do, but the effects may come out differently. Only one cable to connect multiple fans. As I mentioned before, buying the single fan version, you get different cables, meaning it can connect to your fans RGB header, versus buying the pack where it doesn't come with certain things. Oh, I mean the fan header on the motherboard. Fluid dynamic bearing provides stability, durability, longevity, 40 LEDs in each fan. Low noise level at high RPMs. We will see in the testing. You know who you are if you are after this fan purely for the RGB. I'm going to try to keep it pretty objective. but I will say it looks pretty cool. We're just scrolling quickly through their website. Infinity Mirror Fan, Infinity Mirror ARGB, Side Frame ARGB. So they are talking mostly about the RGB of this fan. That's one of the reasons why I'm scrolling so quickly through it. Removable key locks. Oh, so that it won't obstruct your custom loop if that's what you've decided to do. I will say that's probably the primary advantage of the Lian Li fans. It's for a custom loop as opposed to an AIO or your regular airflow type case, that it I guess can all connect via one fan. Most AIOs come with fans, so unless you really hate those fans, doesn't matter that much. Improved performance, 10% performance optimization compared to the SL120. There's a lot better airflow, 61.3 CFM, higher static pressure of 2.66, which is pretty good, but not nowhere near the best I've seen. So where was I? Got a little distracted there. 2.66 millimeters of H2 is pretty standard. It's not great, not bad. It's just kind of okay at this point. But it should be more than plenty for most radiators, even thick boys. 0 or 200 RPM to, that means it can go to 0 RPM, or minimum when you've entered probably 15 to 20 power management curve. 200 will be your minimum RPM with a maximum of 2,100, which is pretty good, pretty standard maximum RPM, and relatively low noise at 29 dB. And we're going to see it in the tests depending on where this comes in the video. Either you've seen what I got, or we will see in a minute. And that's just the construction of the fan. It looks like it has a 4-pole motor. So that's just the number of these copper coils that electricity runs through to spin the blades. Their software suite, which actually appears to be one of the best software suites on the market, just for controlling the RGB and all that kind of stuff. One thing I don't have multiple of these fans is if I could have this one going at one, this one going at a different color, this one going at a different color, with each one doing different RPMs. That is sort of my dream setup, where I could essentially stagger the fans so they're all running at slightly different RPMs, and then as you need more cooling, it would increase 1, 2, or 3 fans at different rates. And supposedly, in theory, I can't test it, that equates to better noise performance, having them at different RPMs than all of them at the same. Anyways, endless lighting effects. You can have the center, you can have the ring, you can have all of them. Mix and match. Oh, looks like there are some different lighting effects, so maybe it is possible to do that. Works with some of their older fans. There's the fan curve, so they're just showing pictures of the software. I really just want to main SATA, sub SATA, you get that box, only one cable, but then it's proprietary cable, so it's less compatible with everything else. Disadvantage, buying the single box, at least it's more compatible. So I would almost recommend, if you need 4 fans, you buy the trio and you buy the single, and so that way you got everything you need under the sun. Oh, there are finally the specifications. I'm not sure what those are. All right, so each of these are just the number of fans in the pack, so that must be the white, and this is the black version. Connector type that it comes with, the fan hub size. It's a 5 volt, 12 volt, 5 volt for LED. The fan RPM, how much static pressure that the fan can generate, its maximum CFM, the acoustical, the lock current, the bearing type, fluid dynamic bearing. It's not maglev, that's interesting. And note that some bearing types are better in a horizontal and some in a vertical orientation. I forget which is best at which. We'll have to look into that. Startup voltage and current, input current, and its wattage, and it's only got a 2-year warranty. Most other fans have a 5-year warranty. This is the product page for the NF-A12x25. So this is the slim fan for Noctuas. That is the same generational technology as the X25. So slim design, so that would be great for a very compact, tight case where you don't have a lot of clearances going on, but still want a reasonable amount of airflow. Metal reinforced motor hub, flow acceleration channels. Let's bring up the fan. Can you see that? Right there. These little grooves that they put into the fan. Those are the flow acceleration channels. If you ever look at an airplane wing, you'll see similar type features on it, and it just helps direct airflow as it's coming over the wing, or a blade in this case. The AAO frame, inlet design that's got steps to it, and interior surface structure. So again, it's really hard to see, but you know, they're in there. So those are like golf ball dimples, which help trip the air to turbulent, which reduces the boundary layer on the edge of the fan. Integrated vibration panels, PWM, bunch of other technology, 6-year warranty. And quickly scroll up, specifications, so we can keep this video moving. 4-pin, cable length, bearing type. Max RPM is 1850, or low noise adapter at 1400. Minimum rotational speed is 450. Its max airflow in meters cubed per hour, which you can convert to CFM, which is cubic feet per minute. What it is with the low noise adapter, acoustics, with and without low noise, and its max static pressure. One of the main things you'll notice about the slim fan is that you lose a lot more static pressure for a similar rotational velocity and airflow. So how much air it can push through, so that CFM slash meters cubed per hour rating is going to be very similar to a normal thickness 120 or whatever size fan you're looking at. But when you cut the thickness essentially in half, like that, you're losing the capability for static pressure because you can't get as steep an angle on the fan blade over the course of that. So the same is true for a thicker fan, where you're going to be able to generate more static pressure in that fan blade. Let's see, I got off topic. It's power, amperage, voltage, rated lifespan, and everything else. All right. This is the Noctua NF-A12x25 page on their website. Next generation performance, highly optimized PQ. So that's pressure versus volumetric flow rate. And that's where you do very extensive fan testing within a very specialized chamber where you know every detail about it to get basically all the details for RPM versus how much pressure it can generate, for the amount of CFM or cubic feet per minute of airflow. Excellent on application acoustics, so it's noise, flow acceleration channels, ultra tight clearance. Actually, that's one thing that Noctua really has done well recently, is that gap between the fan and the edge. So I'm going to use an older Noctua fan as a quick example, so you can see how you can see the light around the edge versus the newer Noctua fans. Having that gap as tight as possible means that less air can circulate out of the fan, meaning go the wrong direction. And that actually does happen if your gap is too large. So basically what it's doing is creating a ducted fan, as opposed to like a propeller on a propeller plane. Metal reinforced motor hub and a bunch of other stepped inlet designs. So these are just all the different technologies that Noctua has developed for their fans and like to advertise about. Stops at 0 PWM. Actually, I find that it stops before that, but under 20, actually maybe under 15 PWM sensor reading. It's got a low noise adapter, but I don't see much reason to do that because you can manually set it. And there we go. And then let's see, back up, specifications, the size, the actual size, cable length, the bearing technology type, material, the RPM, what it is with the low noise adapter, rotational speed minimum at 20%, airflow in meters cubed per hour, which is the same as CFM, just different units, so you'd need to do a conversion. Low noise adapter. It's noise rating. Obviously in my testing, I'm going to get different noise values. And how much static pressure the fan can generate. And this is at 100% RPM or with the low noise adapter at that RPM. And how much power output the fan has, its amperage, voltage, its rated lifespan, 6-year warranty. All right. Conclusion time for this roundup of 3 fans. The Noctua NF-A12x25, the Noctua NF-A12x15 Slim, and the SL Infinity INF-120 size fan. So in this roundup of fans, they're all 120 size fans, and well, if you're going RGB, you already know what you're going to get. But in terms of raw performance for these fans, it's an easy win for the Noctua A12x25. It's easily the winner in noise normalized, as well as the performance through the cooler. It basically tied the Infinity fan, and really was the top performer, including in sound. The Lian Li fan I just found a little unimpressive with its noise profile. Not that it's absolutely terrible. And the slim version also is a bit noisier, but not that bad. And at certain RPMs, it is noisier than others. But any of these three fans is pretty good. But the Noctua here is definitely the winner. It comes in black, it comes in brown, so you can pick and choose, but there are no RGB options, so I guess this is where we're ending it. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.